Malice Green. And when they killed him, I was shocked. I was in undergrad by the time because it was on my block, 23rd Street. And my mother called. She was livid. She was crying. She was frustrated. So they killed Malice. They killed Malice. I said, I want anybody want to kill Malice. What did he do? You know, everybody knew Malice was crazy, but he was a good guy, never in trouble. And she used all the men up for it. See, MF in Detroit was like part of the vocabulary. Y'all have to know from him. He was part of it, right? He said they pulled him over and they harassed him, and he was disoriented, and they shot and killed him. And the city was in an uproar. People protested, demonstrated. The city was arguing because everybody knew Malice Green. Wouldn't harm anybody. Was not mentally adjusted. They say he was on drugs. If he was self-medicating at best, but I don't even think he was on drugs. He was always the same. And I was like, wow. Because had that been Smitty, they would instantly recognize and respect his human essence. Had there been Conway, they would have calmed him down and got whatever attention he needed, even if it was going just around the corner to go get his money. That if there was a law enforcement officer who understood that we deserve the same protections and rights as anyone else because we are contributors to societies, we are not abstracting from society. But as I began to go through my studies, I also recognized that this country has done a lot to try to prevent us from our growth. That in the backdrop of the civil rights movement, 1976 was also a time when we seen an explosion of heroin in our communities. That heroin was not brought by no one from the community, it was dumped in our community. That in the 80s, because of the political gains that we were making, we later learned about a deal that was cut to trade arms for Iran and the Contra. And to pay for that, because Congress wouldn't authorize it, they were allowing cocaine to come in, which spread the crack epidemic. That in 92, when Malice Green was killed in Detroit, we were on the back end of this explosion crack epidemic, and the news media would cover it as if we were the problem as opposed to victims that were being preyed on as they dumped this poison as the communities across the country. What's our role when that happens? Because the meth epidemic we're seeing now is affecting their community. That it was not that rural whites went out and when they got the meth, that there was actually a pharmaceutical company who was seeking to make more profit, putting more opioids into pain medication, and it spread across rural America like wildfire. What's our role as law enforcement officers when we run into either one of those scenarios where you have people who've been preyed on? That during the crack epidemic, the conversation was, let's lock them up and throw away the key because the prison industrial complex was making billions of dollars of warehousing black people. And now they want people to say, wait a minute, that's not warehousing white people, let's get them mental health treatment. The question and challenge to you here today, when you run across whether someone on meth or crack or whatever the new drug emerged to be, and unfortunately some of our family members got caught in that, what will your response be? How would you handle that? The discretion that law enforcement agency have combined with your district attorney is immeasurable. Why should we be placed in a position to go beyond protecting and serving and get in the position of incarcerating and locking up? Are there methods and approaches that we should be reconsidering, reimagining when we come here and say, you know what, community policing is better than Operation Stress. And if you do community policing, this is how it looks. You know what? If we have officers in the cities actually walking and getting to know the neighborhood, they can isolate the problem areas and then work with the county and municipality so that they can be addressed better. But the technology is one in which we can isolate the zip codes where the most egregious activity is taking place, and we can prescribe a solution to address that social ill. The NOVA was created to respond to the policing environment of the day, which was negative to our community, and NOVA today should be prescribing remedies on how we address systemic problems. I want my mother to be safe in our house. So do you. I want my children to be able to walk to school if that's possible. So do you. I would like to see the value of my home appreciate because it's a quality community and not depreciate because people are fleeing the area because of high rates of crime. The power you have is not only the power of protecting and serving, you drive the economy for the communities you're responsible for. You determine the future wealth because if the homes that we live in appreciate and value because the community is safe, then that's an asset that can be passed, and that's generational wealth. You determine whether or not companies will come to your area as opposed to another area based on crime statistics, because when a company looks at locate, they're looking at their school performance and crime statistics. Oh, school performance, because of community trauma and household trauma, kids can't perform in school. This organization was created to prescribe solutions, not to reinforce the status quo. So I want to finish with a story. And my wife was here, she said it's not a true story. But since she isn't here, it's absolutely true. I was an undergrad at Tougaloo College in Mississippi, where I still reside. And my wife was shaking, and she let Tougaloo, she shaking. Married now 31 years, and she's from a small town outside of Magnolia, Mississippi called Joplin. Not even a town, it might be a village. It's the suburbs of a small town. And in southwest Mississippi is not really known to be a Catholic religious state, but there's a nunnery. It's close to the border of Louisiana. Louisiana has a lot of Catholics. And at this nunnery, her great aunt worked, and she was like, my great aunt wanted us to come because they have a visiting speaker. There's a brother who was a priest, had done his mission on the continent of Africa. Don't know if you remember which country. Y'all do know Africa is a continent, not a country. It's 54 countries on the continent of Africa. He was in one of those countries, and in one of those countries, he was in a village with some of the villagers, and he had done his mission work. He was coming back, and he was sharing his story. He had just gotten back, and he was fascinated by the culture. He embraced the culture. He said it was familiar and yet foreign at the exact same time. And every time he seen people greet one another, they will use a word, and he couldn't remember what the word was for. I can't remember what the word they were greeting. He asked the village elders, I notice every time people see one another, they greet using this word. What does that mean? And the village elders, they loosely translated, he says, well, we greet each other by saying, I see the Christ in you. I see the power in you. And every time they see one another, they will always address one another. I see the Christ in you. I see the power in you. And the priest, he said it had an impact. It gave him the reality of all of his mission work, all of his training, all of his seminary studies all come to that one conclusion. Are we able to see the Christ, the power in each other? Whether you're on patrol and you see some young men who may or may not be doing what they should do we see criminals or can we see the power in them? The potential in them? The opportunity in them? Yes, I got daughters who try to wear skirts too short. I'm like, what are you doing? But when they leave the house, I want to make sure that they get pulled over, that the officers that pull them over or see them see the potential in them. The power in them. If you take anything I said this morning, I hope we leave here understanding that we must see the powers in each one of us. The potential. And if we can acknowledge it out loud and say, brothers, sisters, I see the power in you. It begins to take all of the illusions and the curtains that we hide behind and make the interaction more personal, more beneficial to all of our community. As I sit here, you got Sheriff McFadden. Sheriff McFadden, I've known a long time. He's the NACP. Well, I'm glad somebody's seen the power in that nigga, because he was something special. But because somebody's seen the power, the potential in him, he sits here as the top elected officials in Mecklenburg. That somebody's seen the potential and the power in you, and as a result of that, you're sitting here today. Now, I can talk a lot about this current political climate, but there's nothing I can say that y'all already don't know. We got a nut in the White House. Y'all know that. But I decided not to do that because in this moment, my acknowledgement is the fact that we are winning. Come on. That we are winning. And that all of the targets against us is a response to our ability to sustain an effort that we are winning. That when they thought that we were non-human and we were chattel, that we took up arms and we forced the question to hold this nation together. And we won in that, and we got the 13th, the 14th, and 15th Amendment. That's right. When law enforcement agencies began to organize, particularly in the state of Indiana, the Horse Brigade, which became the catalyst for the Klan in the 1920s, we were able to weather that storm because we had faith of those dark days. When this nation went to war in World War II, and Nazi Germany and Hitler's army began to advance, and people were worried, could we sustain the fight? And we had to fight because they wouldn't let black folks to go to war. We organized Tuskegee Airmen, and they trained and they trained and they trained, and because those B-52 bombers could not penetrate, that they finally said, we want y'all to come. And because of the success of those Tuskegee Airmen, we helped defeat Nazi Germany. When there was a question about whether or not this nation will hold true to its promise under the Constitution, whether it was a lawsuit that we filed that became Brown versus Board of Education, or the plethora of other lawsuits that we filed in the fight to ensure that the public policy of the New Deal would apply to our community. We organized, and Fannie Lou Hamer did what she needed to do along with Aaron Henry, and we forced the Democratic Party to recognize us, and we broke through giving us the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, and all the things that was necessary so that our tax dollars can reflect the quality of our life. We are winning. The platform that Jesse Jackson stood on was the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party in '64, and he came right back and he registered more people in 1980 than anybody else in that decade, all across the southern landscape, resulting in some of you being in your elected official position today. He stood on that platform. That history, Stony the Rose retrial. He recognized that he could not be drawn with the wine of the world. And he stayed focused. He built a campaign in '84, and it gained momentum, and in '88 it gained momentum, but he was able to create what's called proportional representation in the party, which led to Barack Obama being nominated and winning in 2008. The process of our persistence and our perseverance is a demonstration of our winning, but every time we win, there is a reaction. Obama wins in 2008. Tea Party gets created by 2010, shifting Congress. Leads to Trump Part 1 in 2016. And he did so bad that we were able to come back through our vote. We only represent 13% of the total population, but we collectively deposit our vote 90% just alike. And that block vote is the difference between who wins and loses. The only real question is, do we increase our turnout, or is it at status quo? And in November, we have to increase it, because we are the black vote to make the decision whether or not this country will have a democracy or self-representation. So don't get discouraged or distracted over this conversation around DEI. In fact, can anyone give me the definition of DEI? There is no operational definition for it. It means something based on the agency you work for, the county you work in, the corporation you're part of. They create the noise here so they can pick your pockets down here. Right. That in this moment is our responsibility to ensure that the policies that govern us look like us and apply to our quality of life, and we should not ever implement policy that's not in our interest. We should not ever implement policy, policing policy, or any other that's not in our interest. And so my final thought here, as we approach November, we have a lot of people in this country who are disillusioned. They're lost at sea. They voted for somebody who took their farm subsidies away. Yep. They voted for someone who told them that they were going to shift the economy, and the economy has gotten worse. They voted for someone that has increased the cost of gas. They voted for someone that took jobs out of this country. They voted for someone based on the illusion that somebody was coming to take jobs that none of us won't ever do again. I can't think of a single job that an immigrant is coming to take it from the black community. Guess what? We're not doing that work anymore. Just like the white people ain't doing that work anymore. And we need more people to come and do certain type of work. That's how the system replenish itself. But we allow this to distract us from right here. It's all about the money. Who gets taxed, who's not taxed, and how those tax dollars are used. A whole community lost at sea. Booker T. Washington gave a story about a ship stranded at sea. How they were out there and they was dying of thirst, and they began to realize they was going to run out of food. They run out of food, and the ship was there, and they seen a friendly vessel, and they signaled, and the friendly vessel said, "Cast down your buckets where you are now." But the same point it was about us casting our buckets, so everything we need was under us. But his mindset is white folks who voted for a person and a philosophy that got them stranded, and they need help. And we are the friendly vessel. We have always been. Let's vote like we never voted in November. And although they're stranded, if we do what we're supposed to do, we can help them get to where they need to be.